Hey guys, this is Eric Miller here, and I've owned this gun, the KelTec P15, for a whole entire year already. Holy macaroni, it seems longer. So I thought I would give you the condensed version of what life has been like with this gun over the past 12 months. So for starters, this particular gun came out of the very first batch of P15s that KelTec mass produced. Now, if you're not aware, KelTec manufactures most of their guns in batches rather than on a continuous line. So, as an example, for 1 month, production line A will make P15s, and the next month, that same line will produce some different gun, etc. So this is why sometimes it can be hard to find a particular KelTec gun you're looking for. One day, there will be 1 million RDBs on Gunbroker, and then a week later, poof, they're all gone, and you'll have a hard time finding one for another 2 months or something like that. A batch went out, got bought up, and then you just have to wait for the next batch. So my gun was one of the very first P15s to be produced in the very first batch, and as such, when I received it in November of 2022, I expected problems. And I got them. Now, this is not as uncommon as you might expect from new guns on the market. We can take a look at the multiple issues early SIG P365s had with their firing pins, as well as other reliability issues. More recently, the HS product Echelon had some spectacular magazine problems, and the Janik MC9 had some pretty serious out-of-battery issues. Since the MC9 is the first gun Janik has made that wasn't a one-to-one copy of the P99 with only a variation on the length of the barrel and or the grip, they actually had to start from the ground up. So I think that some issues were kind of to be expected with that gun. In short, stuff happens when things go from small-scale hand-built to large-scale production. Now, is that great? No, but hey, life is finite, and there's only so much time and energy I want to dedicate into being outraged at things. So what were the problems I had with my P15? The short version is that the serialized aluminum chassis was out of spec. As a result of that, the trigger sear wasn't operating correctly, and the slide parts were not interacting correctly with those trigger parts. So it would release the striker, but not disengage the striker safety, meaning you would get a very light strike and no detonation. After 2 range trips filled with sadness, I sent the gun back and KelTec replaced the chassis. From that point onward, I have not had a single failure with this gun, not with feeding, firing, or ejecting, with the exception of 1 round of crappy Winchester ammo that didn't want to go off the first time. So replacing the chassis fixed the gun, but I have sent it back to KelTec 2 other times. Let's talk about why. When I initially got the gun back with the new chassis, I took the gun apart and then couldn't get it back together. For some reason, the plunger that pushes up on the front of the slide release was seated too high, making it impossible to reassemble. I have no clue why this happened, and I sent it in for free and they returned it to me in its current functional state. One other nagging issue I discovered was the propensity of the mag release to dive into the mag well if it was pressed too hard. Now, I don't know when KelTec discovered this problem. I would be a little shocked if it was due to the video I put out on the subject, but hey, who knows? I waited several months for them to announce a fix for it, but they never did. I eventually sent the gun back in, and they installed a number of minor modifications and upgrades that they had come up with in the months since the gun had first been released. The first was, of course, the mag release. It was slightly redesigned and won't disassemble itself anymore. They also slightly modified the extractor and the striker spring, so for whatever reason, they determined those parts were ripe for improvement. So if you were to purchase this gun now, I think it's very unlikely that you would run into any of the problems that I experienced with the P15. And if you did have any problems, KelTec service is known to be excellent for a reason. They're very good and very helpful. They got my gun running and installed upgrades all for free. So what have I found that is good and bad about this gun? Let's talk about the good things first. It's stupendous to carry. It's so thin and so light, anything you pick up after this gun will seem like a fat pig in comparison. This gun, loaded with 16 rounds of 9mm, including the holster, weighs only 1 pound 10 ounces, or about 742 grams, which is ridiculous. Now, that might change once I get an optic on here, but the size and the weight of this gun are unbeatable right now. As a side note, there are a number of holsters available for this gun now, but when I first started shopping, there were basically only two, the rounded holster and the aggressive concealment holster. I went with the aggressive concealment holster for two reasons. First, it was available with an optic cut, and it was almost half the price of the rounded holster. I bring this up because for some very odd reason, KelTec has started selling the rounded holster on their P15 and P17 pages, but neither of these holsters will fit these guns when equipped with an optic. KelTec, what are you doing? Anyway, the optics covers are soon to be released for the P15, and I'll give you an update on when that happens. So, how is the gun to shoot? It's not bad. The first time I shot it, I hated it, but with the backstrap on and some practice, it seems to have tamed down quite a lot. So much so that I found the recoil to be fairly close to the infamously soft shooting Walther CCP. Now, the perception of recoil is a bit subjective and is going to depend on how big your hands are and how strong your arms are, etc. But I have exceptionally medium-sized hands and pathetically weak forearms. I find the accuracy to be very good. I've gotten fairly good with it and find it very easy to make hits with. I was recently able to make hits on a torso-sized target at about 50 yards, which surprised me. So this is a good-sized target, but if you were to say it's roughly people-sized, I think that would be correct. I don't know.
I heard it.
I hit it.
You did.
I got it. Wow.
Not bad.
All three. But what surprised me even more was making hits on the same target at 95 yards.
You gotta be kidding me.
Ta-da!
Wow.
That exceeds anything I would expect out of a subcompact or micro-compact carry gun. I attribute being able to make these hits mainly on two things. First, the sights, and second, the trigger. In order to cram the 4-inch barrel into this gun, the slide is longer than most other guns in this class, meaning the sights are further apart from one another, giving you a better sight radius, which means it's easier to make shots at longer distance. The standard night sights that all P15s come with are also excellent. Easy to see in day or in night and lock up really tight with one another without a lot of air in between the front and the rear sights. The other accuracy boost comes from the dreamy trigger. There's a bit of take up and then a completely smooth and even 5-pound trigger pull through Cool Whip when it just breaks. There's no wall, there's no crunching, no nothing. It's just buttery smooth until the gun goes off. Now, some people will turn their nose up at this and it may take some getting used to, but I've picked it up pretty quickly and I'm extremely happy with it. Some people complain about the mag release, and I think that this is a non-issue. It's low profile, so it's not easy to hit accidentally, which in my mind is something that I would want in a carry gun. Not only that, but a carry gun with a magazine safety. I have no problem using the release right or left-handed, and anyone who claims it doesn't work is likely the source of the problem. I like that it's got a loaded chamber indicator and a chamber window to see if it's loaded. I like that you can turn off the magazine safety, which I don't like, but keep the grip safety on, which I do like. I like that it has a rail for a light if I ever choose to get one. So what don't I like about it? Well, I'll start off with something I'm 50-50 about, the grip texture. It is incredibly aggressive. Now, I can understand why an aggressive grip is a good thing on a gun this small. You really want to have a good grip on it, especially if you're using it under duress. So in one sense, I'm totally fine with it. However, depending on how you carry it, it could be a problem. If it's right up against your skin, for example, it will rub you raw in no time flat. Now, I've seen that some people have gone to sanding down the side of the grip, which goes up against their body, to alleviate this issue. Now, it's not a huge problem for me, as I'm incredibly lazy and barely leave the house for any length of time, so I don't often have it abrasing me for the whole day. But this may be a concern for you. The other thing that slightly concerns me is KelTec's special plastic. Most polymers used in handguns today are on the dense and ductile side of things, meaning that they're likely to warp or bend before they break, and are also a bit on the heavy side. Now, KelTec prefers plastics on the other side of that spectrum, which are light and strong, but more brittle. For example, I dropped this slide onto a hard surface from about 3 or 4 feet, and the back cover cracked. It was still usable, and KelTec replaced it for free, but still, it cracked. I think the grip module is made from a slightly different type of plastic, but still, I'm sure it will be on the brittle side. Now, if it were possible to purchase new or different grip modules right now, I think that some drop tests would be informative for the community. But as it stands now, I just have to wonder. The main downside concerning the gun's performance is that it is very flippy. The slide and the barrel are long and the grip is small. This means that the front of the gun will jump up quite easily while shooting and may decrease the speed you can accurately fire it. And while I love the sights, I'm not a fan of how the rear sights are adjusted, as they will drift. So the solution is to get them lined up and then Loctite them down and then don't ever touch them again. So how can I wrap up this 1-year review? I really like this gun. It's slim, light, accurate, reliable, has great sights and a great trigger and a huge capacity. And for me, the price was right in the mid $300 range. But please keep in mind that this is not a police or a military duty gun, nor is it a nightstand gun for home defense. Everything about it is designed around concealed carry. That is what it's made for, and that is what it excels at. If you try to push it into a different role, it may not perform as well as you want it to. As much as I like it, based on the feedback I've seen from some other people, I would say that this gun might not be for everybody. But I think I could say that about most of KelTec's guns. Some people simply hate their guns just because they're so weird and off the wall, or they don't quite understand the role the specific gun is intended to fill, while others will not want to take the time and effort to make sure that the gun is working properly. Now, getting to know your gun and making sure it's functional is something you should do for literally any firearm you purchase. I mean, don't ever buy a gun and immediately stick it in a drawer and expect it to work 10 years from now. That's just stupid. But unfortunately, you would be shocked to know how many people actually treat firearms like that. But with KelTec, they unfortunately do have a reputation for letting some mistakes slip through from time to time, and you should really take your time checking to make sure that all is well with your purchase. Now, for those reasons, KelTec's guns are maybe not for everybody, but if you are a bit more hands-on and can get into KelTec's mindset a little bit of what it is that they're trying to go for, I think this is a really excellent carry gun. And that's all I got for you this time, so stay safe and have fun, kids.